Welcome, everyone. We are here today as part of the Network Operations Management Virtual Forum 2023. My name is Kenny Heindel. I'm a product marketing manager here at OpenText, formerly Micro Focus, and I'm so excited to be joined today by some of our friends over at GreenLight Group. We're going to have a conversation about some of their experience with the OPTIC Data Lake. On the line, we've got Joe Madden, founder and president. We've got Chris Monroe, solutions architect. And we've got Brian Bowden, senior engineer. Joe, can you tell me a little bit more about what it is that GreenLight does?
Yeah, so GreenLight Group, the way that we like to present ourselves is we're an IT engineering services firm that focuses on ITOM, ESM, and automation. We've been doing this since 2004, cover primarily North America, and with just a core focus around the legacy HP software tools.
Thanks so much. All right, so jumping right in, how much activity have you seen with upgrades for NOM?
So we've about 18 months ago, we started to see a much more picked up, level of activity, level of inquiry. Lots of drivers. I think we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, there's definitely an interest. Some of it's being driven by reporting and MPS and OPTIC, and then there's some other areas. But definitely, curious folks are curious, and when we show them what's new, that definitely starts to drive the desire to kind of get to the latest and greatest.
Thanks. Yeah, that's similar to what we're seeing over here on our end. So we know these things take time, but are there any common characteristics among these first customers?
Well, there's a couple different ones, right? There's some things where, we've seen upgrade exercises that are driven by things as simple as they're running on old Windows OSs that they have to get off of, right? So we've seen a couple of those. There's definitely a drive towards adopting newer versions of the monitoring solutions so that they can actually have the updated drivers and functionality that comes to monitor the newer modern endpoints that they're looking to monitor. And then there's definitely the the drive of away from MPS towards OPTIC and wanting to see what that's about and taking advantage of that. So those are really kind of the primary themes. We're also seeing some of the driver as folks are starting to move these solutions from on-prem to the cloud.
Thanks. So you sort of touched on it already, but where are they deploying primarily? Is it on-prem?
It's a mix. I would still say it's more heavily towards on-prem, but as we've seen more and more customers trying to do a cloud-first initiative, or at least going that direction, we're seeing a demand for that. We've done a couple implementations of it already in AWS and dabbling with one in Azure, and starting to see some demand around Google Cloud as well. But it really is a mix, and some of it comes down to the resource knowledge of the customers, and I think what drives a lot of them towards the cloud too is just being able to leverage the native Kubernetes services that the cloud providers like EKS for AWS per se.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So final question, or rather a second final question. What benefits are customers seeing from the upgrades to the OPTIC Data Lake?
Well, I think one of the things that they're seeing is it's OPTIC, and the reporting with that interface is way more performant and seems to be more stable than what we've had with MPS. Obviously, it's updated technology. It's native OpenText now technology. So the performance piece is one big one, and then the other big one is just the updated drivers, right? A lot of customers, especially in the NA space, where they haven't maybe upgraded for a few years, have devices out in their environment that they weren't able to really effectively manage, and getting those updated drivers has really helped them a lot. I don't know, Chris or Brian, do you guys want to jump in? And was there any other things that you would call out?
Well, one thing that I see, we have a customer that we're deploying currently that is a shared optic between OpsBridge and NOM, and the performance troubleshooter in that deployment gives them the availability to go ahead and display data from both their NOM side and their OpsBridge within one screen for a dashboard, which I think with the diversity of data that you get within the OPTIC, I think you can really plan and use that data for your specific needs as a customer. So I think that's one thing that's really happening that people are excited about.
I would also like to add to that we have recently been working on some projects with some customers that, as Joe had mentioned, they were originally driven by the requirement to upgrade the operating systems, outdated Windows 2012 servers, end of life, taking us into the new, Windows 2019, Windows 2022, and forward. And with these upgrades to OPTIC, NOM, and NNM all having support for the newer operating systems, we've been able to drive to using that combined OPTIC Data Lake, bringing OpsBridge and NOM together, as well as one of the most recent deployments we've had takes our OPTIC Data Lake, and we've got that running in the AWS cloud, while we actually had an upgrade recently completed on the NNM side in Azure. So bringing all that together, the combination of the platforms for NOM and OPTIC gives us a great simplification to the architecture, firewalls, access lists, and things that we've had to deal with trying to get communication between all the systems has been greatly simplified as we've gone through this process. So I think we've gotten a great benefit out of that as well. And then to see the performance again behind those new dashboards, bringing NOM into the whole OpsBridge interface makes for a great performance boost moving forward.
Yeah, I want to kind of double back on what Brian called out. Is that whole a major driver and where they're seeing customers seeing value is if they're an OpsBridge and NOM customer. That shared OPTIC environment kind of cuts down on the workload, and the consolidation and integration of those two, as Brian called out some examples there, is a big deal. And then as far as this may sound trivial, but it's always one of the things that comes out of these type of exercises is there's a lot to be said about upgrades forcing you to validate your inventory, clean out what's no longer there, make sure what's new is really, really there and really, really functional. And that's, I like to call that the loose bolts and squeaky wheel stuff that gets taken care of when you go through one of those exercises. So those are some other value points, but I would say right now, the people that have the most to gain are those folks that are doing that combined OpsBridge NOM approach to things.
Yeah, I know we're really excited about that over here on our end. So it's good to hear that the customers are kind of getting that benefit.
Yeah.
So last question, you touched on this a little bit already, but can you speak a little bit more to the key steps to planning for an upgrade?
Well, I think I'll let Kristen and Brian kind of take this. I think, it's a little bit deeper. The one high level thing I would say is that, and this is a lesson learned repeatedly for us with our customers, is just you have to take the time to really inventory, not just your inventory, but custom polling, custom messaging, really validate what's working, what's not working in that current and production environment, so that you have a solid baseline to go back to and reference to when you're building out the new system. But Brian and Chris, I know there's a lot more that you guys have experienced at a deeper level.
Yeah, so I can start. The one thing that I think that needs to be looked at also as you're thinking about an upgrade is, are the current spies you have, are they covering the things that you need? Do you have monitoring for all your devices? Are there some devices that haven't been able to be monitored because of the age of the device, or if it's a new device, the spies that you are using weren't covering them at the time. So to take a real look at your inventory, like Joe says, that's one of the first steps. And secondly, as you do the install and as you move forward in this process, I think it's great to, one thing to do is to understand the flow of data, because there's a lot of touch points between NOM and the OPTIC Data Lake, especially in a shared environment with OpsBridge. You have data coming through the front of OpsBridge, going through the OpsBridge namespace, then through the NOM namespace into OPTIC. So to know all those touch points and to understand that will help you manage the data moving forward, because the data in this environment is the most important thing, right? That's what you're looking for, to get it all into the OPTIC Data Lake, so then you can use it in visualization. You can use it in your practice for monitoring. And the enhancements that have come in the last few versions has really expanded the amount of data that you can pull in through the different softwares. Another thing I think is useful is don't be afraid of the data lake. Get involved, know and understand what data is there, so then you can build your visualizations for your company for your needs. Micro Focus brings out a lot of out-of-the-box dashboards that are great, but there might be something that is better for you as a customer, and you can just dig right into that data lake and pull those out and build your own visualizations. And secondly, the last thing I wanted to talk about was there's a couple CLIs for practitioners that are listening that I find very helpful in tracking the data through the process. There's an OPTIC Health shell script that you run on the Vertica server, and it goes ahead and it pulls all the current data, timestamps for the raw data and the post-flow data. And so it shows all the different ones for each different piece that you have integrated. So in one command, you can go through and check all of yours at the same time. And then there's a task flow status shell script that will show the data that's coming through raw, current, up to date, right then, just in a CLI, so you don't have to go digging around through logs and different things for that. So those two CLIs, they're available through the toolkit on the support site. I would suggest using those, and also leverage the Grafana dashboard for data flow. There's a lot of good post-load dashboards in there that have been very helpful in our troubleshooting. So those are some of the things I wanted to highlight.
And I think I'll add a little bit to that. Some of the things that I wanted to call out and highlight there as well. Again, with these technology updates and the move to the cloud and Kubernetes and the microservices by nature, giving us, integrated and built-in HA and scalability, there has been a drive to need to know a little bit more of that architecture as well, setting it up, understanding Kubernetes deployments, microservices, and getting those set up. But following up with Brian, and access to CLI options and making sure that everything is connected, running, stable, and available at all times, right? Moving into this containerized platform has really helped drive that to an end that we can spread out to not just, the SME experts, but also to be able to continue to maintain in an everyday basis, and let some of those microservices, self-healing, self-maintenance, self-readiness, all those internal checks that just help drive to that platform stability as well.
Thanks so much, Chris. And thanks so much, you guys. It's been great speaking to you today, and it's great to have you guys as partners.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks for watching, everyone, and be sure to check out all the rest of our live and on-demand content as part of the Network Operations Management Virtual Forum 2023.